Hello there, survivors, and welcome back to another build tutorial in ARK Survival Ascended. Today, I'm building this overgrown bunker base using the bunker structure custom cosmetics. Technically, I think you could also build this using different skins. You might have to change a few things, but yeah, it's definitely designed around this skin specifically. If you're watching this video shortly after it's been uploaded, head over to my Discord for a chance to win a free code to get this premium cosmetic. But of course, that only works if you're watching this right away. But it's definitely a good reason why you should join my Discord, just in case you want to get a chance of winning these free skins when I get some codes. But in my opinion, it's definitely worth the skins because there's a lot of cool variations. Of course, you have the overgrown skins to really get that cool look, and you should definitely be able to build this on official as well. So this base has a bunch of space on the inside for your crafting, storage, sleeping quarters, stuff like that, as well as a built-in dino pen for your breeding and hatching of creatures, plenty of space on the roof for your flyers, as well as a helipad for your rhino and nether right on the outside too. So if you're looking for a bunker to live in on your adventures on the Ark, you've come to the right place. And of course, as always, if you enjoy seeing these types of videos and you want to see more, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and of course, feel free to leave suggestions for future build tutorials down in the comments below. Alright, we're going to start over here with the foundation, and we're going to make this 8 long in total. So just like this, a line of 8. And then here at the end, we're going to bring it out by 2. And then we're going to make this 2 wide in total as well. Then over here, we can bring this out by 4. And then bring this out by a 2 by 2 again. So mirroring that shape over there. We're going to repeat that once more. We want to make sure that we have these 3 shapes. So you have the 2 by 2, 2 by 2, 2 by 2, and then 8 foundations at the end. Then here, over between these two, we can have a nice gateway. It's going to be one of the entrances that we're going to have in this base. And of course, you can either have some ramps here or some stairs, whatever you prefer the look of. I probably would go for some ramps to make it slighter slope for your tames to walk up on. So over here we have these 3 right next to each other, and then we want to bring out a foundation from here. So it's going to be just this one, and we're going to bring this out by 1 more. This is going to be 3 in total, and we can actually make a little 3 by 3 out of this. From that 3 by 3, we're going to bring out our triangle foundations, switch them to the quarter foundation, then have 2 over here and 2 over on this corner, which should fit 2 normal foundations right between it. So you can snap a gateway right in the middle, so it lines up in the middle of this 3 by 3 over here. Then on this side, we can continue the foundations by 4 in total, so we can bring this one forward. So there's 3 foundations here, then it goes out by 1, and this is going to be 4 in total. And here on this side, it's just going to be the 1 foundation. Then from there, we want to actually line this up and bring this out with 2 wide and 5 long in total. So this side should be 5. Then here in the inside, we also want to make sure that we keep the 5. And after the 5, we can bring this out by 4. Then we can once again have these 2 come out all the way to the same length. So the foundations here on the outside should be 5 long. Then once more, we're going to go across by 4 before we do another one of these sections that come out by 5 in total. They should all line up with each other. So again, 5 here on the outside and then 4 here between each of these sections. And then here at the end, we want to go out by 4 more foundations. This is also going to be 2. We're going to go in by 2 more. So this is now 3 in total. And then here we can come across with 3 before we do the same shape over here. So it's going to go out by these 2 by 2s, and it has 3 foundations here in the middle. Over here we can go in by 1, and we can go across by 4 of these before we fill in this little corner, and that gives us the rough shape of the base that we're going to be working on. Now, there's a few additions still to make over here. We also want to add in some ramps in front. That's going to be another one of the entrances. Then over here, we also want to have a little ramp around that corner. And then we can take out a staircase and add one right along in this corner over here. So ramp over there and a little staircase right over here. And then what we want to do is, well, you probably have guessed it, we can fill in the rest of the foundations to get started on the shape of the building so that we actually have a whole foundation in place and we can start working on bringing up the build itself, but don't have to worry about needing more space or running out of space or not having the foundation support needed. So we just want to go across all of this and start filling it all in with the proper foundations that we need. And of course, for this build, it does not really matter too much what you build it out of if you're going to use cosmetics to skin it, especially if you're going to use the bunker cosmetic that it was designed with. Although that is a premium one, you can definitely also switch it out for different cosmetics. It will look slightly different, of course, but I think you can still make it into a pretty cool bunker base. So for now, we'll just focus on filling in the last few of these foundations, and there we go. That should be the entire footprint of the base that we're working on. All right, first up, we're going to start right over here where we have the staircase and that ramp, this little platform on the outside. We want to go in from this staircase and go out by one more over here. Place a pillar, leave a gap of 4, place another pillar, then leave a gap of 3, place that pillar, and another one right over there. And then we actually also want to add in some pillars right like this. We can add in some ceilings to make a little platform, and this is going to be like the helipad to park a rhino, or I mean other flies could of course also be parked there. And then we want to have a staircase going down just like that. And of course we can add in some railings around this for safety procedures, but also just to make it look a little bit more like an actual build. So we can just go around. And we can actually also add in the railings all around the outside of this build, just like that. And of course, also add them in. Make sure it goes right up to this corner for now. So that's going to be the helipad right over here. And of course, we can now also add in the gates to the gate frames so that we have those in place already. And over here on this side, we want to take out a large cellar door, switch it to the barn doors, and add it right over here in the middle, which is going to be another one of the entrances to the bunker. So from this corner, we want to go in by 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we can also bring up this pillar by 5 in total, just like that. We can then take out some walls. 2 of them we will bring up all the way like this, and then 1 higher than the actual pillar that we just placed. Then we want to bring out the walls again. We can start filling in around this shape just like this. And over here, we can go up by 1 each time we go in by 1 more, which should then line up like this. We can add in our slope walls along the side of it, just like that. And these ones on here, we want to at least fill in these 2. And then, of course, here on the top, on the front, we want to add in our roofs. Just like this, bringing this shape all the way up like that. And at the end, of course, we can have some ceilings just like this. We can also have some walls around that shape for now. And we can have 1 slope wall right over there. Then here along the bottom, we can bring in a beam going all the way from that pillar to the front here. Also along this side. And it can continue actually all the way across the front of this build. And we also want to make sure that it goes around this building until that corner for now. And then we can of course make sure to have the pillars right underneath these corners as some extra details. We can also add them right in there. Then over here, we want to add 5 pillars. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're going to do that for each of these corners. So we're going to bring up these pillars by 5 each time, all the way along the front of this building. Then for these sections, we want to place walls like this, and then 2 in the front. Same over here, 2 like that, or 3 like that, and then 2 in the front. We can have our slope walls going up right across this section, just like this. And then, of course, place our roofs on the top end of these. There we go. Over here in this gap, we want to bring a beam across, just like this. Right here, we want to have some ceilings across that gap above the entrance. And we want to have some quarter ceilings along the beam that we've just placed. Then over here for these walls, we want to start with some quarter walls going along the sides, just like this. And then we can have some normal walls right in the middle, which is going to be a window. So we're going to later change that with the skins that we have available. Of course, if you're building this with any other cosmetics, some of the windows that I'm going to be using, you might have to replace with different structures or just skin them to be a window. But we'll get to the skinning part of the base at the end of the video, of course. Then over here for this section, we also want to start going around with these quarter walls all along the edge of the building, and then leave the middle open for a normal wall, just like that. Over here, we can add 2 quarter walls to this side and then 2 over here, so that we can add in a small doorway right in the middle. Then we just want to fill in the rest of this wall with normal walls just across like this, all the way along the front. There we go. We can then, of course, also add in a little doorway right there. We can also add the beams going across the entire top layer over here. And we can actually add in some railings along the side of this little balcony. There we go. And if you're using the bunker cosmetics and you want to have some like vines hanging down from these ledges, you might want to add in some beams, because those you can skin to the vines. Over here, where we have this big pillar, we want to leave a gap of 2 and then bring up another pillar just like that. And we can then actually bring across some beams. We can bring across the beams right here as well, which should line up with this corner. Then if you want to utilize the space here on the inside, what you want to do first is add some secret doorways along the side here. And then above, we can just fill in everything just like that. And of course, this side of the building, we can then also completely fill in. But yeah, you can still utilize this as like a secret little storage room if you want to. Over here on this side, we want to make sure that we continue this pillar. And then we want to add another pillar right along this corner to the same height over here. We can also add in the beam right away and fill in the entire wall all the way up. Right over here, we also want to add in a pillar that can go all the way up to this height. Then we can bring out our beams and fill them in just like this. And over here on this corner, we can have a pillar go down by 2. Then we can bring across the beams over here along the sides of this foundation and fill in these pillars down below, and then bring them up to the same height for both of these actually. And then 2 from the top, we can have some beams going across for these. We can fill in these entire walls. Again, some of this is going to be windows, but we'll get to there when we start skinning it. So we can just fill in those entire walls, as well as the wall over on this side. We want to fill that in completely, just like this. And then over here, we can bring across the beam. We can actually have it stick out by 1. Then we can fill in this as a little balcony. So we want to fill in this 3 by 3. We can have another beam going across here, as well as going across the front there. And these, again, mostly are going to be utilized to be turned into vines as well. We then want to bring down the pillars along the corners here, just like that. And then we can fill in this side with walls all the way through. We can have another staircase right over there to have a nice entrance. And then here on the other side, we want to add in some ramps so you can get up here. You can park something here, or you can bring it inside through the gateway. And of course, that means that we can fill in this with some quarter walls all the way along the outside. Same thing right over here too. And then here we want to add in a slight extra detail. So we want to bring in some slope walls just like that. And then over here, we want to make sure that we bring up this pillar to be 5 high in total. We can, of course, bring across the beam just like that. And then here in front, we want to make sure that we add in some roofs to these corners. Means that we can also add in some walls. Just like this. All the way around, and of course add in our slope walls to the side of this. Then over here we can add in a door again. You can kind of choose what door you prefer, and of course add in the wall above. Make sure that we add in the actual door to create a nice entrance. And then along the entire outside of the balcony, of course, we want to add in our railings just like this. Then we want to keep this gap of 2 open, and then we want to have a pillar here, which is also going to be 5 high in total. Then we want to take out our quarter walls again. We want to start filling in the bottom, then going across the side of this pillar all the way up to the top, going across again, and going back down here on the other side of the wall. And then in the middle, we can fill in some normal walls. We can bring out our pillars again, add them to the sides of those normal walls, have a beam above and below it, just like that. And then over here, we want to add in 2 roofs and then make it 2 high in total as well. So we add 2 more right on top of it. And then we want to bring across 4 more ceilings just like this. And this is going to be important because this is going to be our stairwell all the way up from the top to the bottom. So we can bring down these pillars from these corners all the way down into the building. We can do the same thing right over here. Bring down these pillars all the way. And that's why we're trying to build this relatively early, so that we can use this staircase to easily get up to the different layers from now on. So we want to start a staircase. If we have the gate over here, we want to go here and then place 1 staircase right there. Have 2 ceilings attached to it. And then have 2 more staircases going up over here. This is where we can add in more ceilings. We can actually go all the way around like that. But we can then also add in our stairs right over here. And then go into some more ceilings right on this level, which is going to line up with the roof. So for now, we can fill this section in and go fill in the section we've just worked on. Add in the roof over here because we're going to have some windows and skylights, but it's also going to be utilized using those skins. So we don't need to worry about it too much for now and can just kind of fill it all in. And this, of course, means that we can fill in these walls just like that. We can fill in this wall just like this. And fill in that wall over here. With this, and of course, have some slope walls on this side. Slope walls on that side. And of course, have a nice little entrance right over here with a door. And then also we can have a ceiling on this little one piece that is on the outside. So then if we look at the inside, we can have some double doors right at the end over here. Then we can go to the next layer, have double doors on these ends as well. We can actually add in a normal doorway right over there. And then of course we can also add in some railings. So here in the middle we want to have a railing. Same thing over here, just in the middle. We can of course have some railings along the side of that little walkway. We can have more railings along this side. And over here we can actually expand this by 1 more ceiling and also have some railings around that little section. And then the rest of these walls we can actually just fill in like normal. So this is just going to be an entire wall going up. Oops, don't forget about the door that we placed. I kind of just misclicked there. We can fill in this wall all the way up around the doors. Fill in this one on this side. And again, this stairwell is going to be quite useful to easily reach all the different layers within the build. So it's going to be very useful to have this relatively early on. And now we can just kind of fill in the rest of the walls like that. It also means that we can fill in this wall right here next to that door that we have above the entrance. And we can start filling in the ceilings for this section. So yeah, we can kind of just add this other layer all the way through there, all the way over here to this side as well. And for now, we'll just fill in this section of the building, but at least it allows you to walk around a little bit and of course reach these doors and entries and etc. Over here, we want to also make sure that we actually add in a doorway. We don't have to have doors in the double doorways unless you really prefer to, of course. But I personally would leave them open so it's easier to walk in and out of them. Then we want to take out our pillars again, and then over here we want to go up by 5 in total and of course connect it back down to the ground. And then we can have a wall right next to it, just going all the way up like that. And we can do the same thing right over here, having this wall go all the way up. We can then take out our beams and bring them all the way across from one side to the other. Just like this. And then it's time to focus on this section right over here, because it's going to be a little bit special. So first of all, we'll take out our stone roof. We'll go out by 1 on each of these corners. Make sure that they're facing this way. And then over here, we can flip them around again. And we can have 2 roofs just like this. Then continuing with the roofs, we want to add one over here, but flip them around again so the textures stay the same. Here on the outside, flip them around as well, so that we have this on the outside again for both of these, coming back in like this. So it's creating a nice little shape. Of course, now we can take out our slope walls and follow along with that shape. Just like that. There we go. We can have 2 normal walls over here in the front, and then we can have some ceilings to close off that section just like that. And over here we can actually create a little balcony by having 4 ceilings going across the front, and of course having some railings go around them. Over here we want to add a little doorway right in that corner. We want to add in some normal walls around it just like that. Then we want to take out some quarter walls along the bottom here as well as along the top. And then we're going to have a window there, but for now, that's just going to be a normal wall. We're also having some thin pillars going up just like this. And then we'll have another layer of ceilings above the little balcony. And we'll have some quarter ceilings going around the outside of this to kind of just expand this a little bit more and make this a little bit nicer. And then if you want to add some vines hanging off from the edges, this is where you want to add some beams in random spots, which you can turn into vines with the bunker skin. So here on the inside, we want to make sure that we continue at least this layer of the wall. Now, there's 2 ways to do this. If you're an official, you of course just want to first of all place in these slope walls to follow the shape, and then you're going to have to use either greenhouse glass or some glass skins to fill in the exact shape over here. So first of all, you start with adding in these slope walls, and then you can have your window filling in the shapes. But for if you have overlapping available, I found that it's much easier just to utilize the same window skins all the way through on the walls, just like this. So now it's going to look like there's no window, of course, but if you change these into the window skins, it's going to be a very nice window. And of course, we want to make sure that we actually add in the doorway right over there as well. And over here around this corner, we want to make sure that we add in a wall all the way up to the top. We can have a beam across the top layer as well, and we can actually have our pillars going all the way down along that side. And that means that for now, at least, we can start filling in a little part of this layer so that you can get around a little bit. So I would stay to this shape for now, just bringing this across. There we go. And we can also fill in this section of the rooftop, just going across the top like this filling in the last little ceilings for this part. Then it's time to work on this side of the building. We have 3 of these coming out, and we want to have 2 walls on the end of each of them. Then for the inside, we actually want to go up by little steps, just like this. So this is how we'll bring up this segment. And of course, that will go the same way for all of these. So we can kind of just follow this along and bring them up in steps. And once again, we're going to do the same thing here for all of these sections, creating these nice slopes into the building, which really help for a cool, unique aesthetic. And these bays that go out to the sides, of course, can also be utilized for like different hatching chambers, etc, etc. But for now, we'll just start filling in all of these sections one by one and get the shape in the right place. There we go, just like that. Means we can also bring out those slope walls and bring them up like that, creating these nice sloped shapes onto the side of the building, just like this, all the way through. There we go. For all of these segments, it's going to be the exact same thing. And then of course, here along the end, we can for now just start filling in this layer by 2 wide all the way until we reach this last segment. And that means that we can continue this for another 2 and then go around just like that. We'll do that for each of these segments. So we'll just go around like that to bring them on top of the roof, basically, so that the shape breaks it up a little bit. Means that we can add in the ceilings on top of these segments as well. And of course, you're free to use some secret doorways if you want to maybe utilize some of these spaces on top of the roof. We're going to use them on the inside building, but yeah, you could, I guess, hide some things in there if you wanted to. Then here on the outside, we want to make sure that we add in the roofs all the way from the top to the bottom to finish these shapes. And of course, that's going to be the same for all of these segments along the side. So we'll just fill all of these in. There we go, all the way up to the top. Now in between, very important, on each of these corners, we want to bring up the pillars until we meet that ceiling, just like that. And we also want to make sure that they go all the way through the bottom. So we'll do the same thing over here. Make sure that these pillars go up to the ceiling level, just like that. And the same thing over here on this corner. And then here, we actually want to make sure that we do another one after a gap of 2. There we go. We can bring a beam across between them. We can have the same beam going across these sides, the gaps between the shapes that we've just made. And then along the bottom of this shape, we actually also want to make sure that we bring the beam across, not in this section in between, just along the shapes that we've created here on the outside, just like that. And then the last one over here, we can do the same thing all the way across the outside, just like that. And then don't forget to add the pillars here in the corners for some extra details over here as well. There we go. Here on the top of the roof, we can add another layer of 2 ceilings, just so that it becomes a little bit easier to walk around on top of here as well. There we go. And then here on the sides, for now on this first segment of the wall, so from the right where we just worked on the first segment, we can bring it up by 3 high, and then along the corners, we can bring it up all the way. Then here on the inside, you can bring out some ceilings just along right until this corner, so that we can reach this gap that we still have. We can start encircling it with some quarter walls all the way around, and then add a normal wall right there in the middle. And for some extra details, we can have some quarter ceilings just alongside this edge. And once again, if you want to have some vines hanging from it, you can add in some pillars just like this, because with the bunker structure skins, you can change those into hanging vines. As for the next segment of this wall, we can just completely fill it in with walls all the way from the bottom to the top. So we'll just fill in this entire wall like that. And here along this side, what we want to do is we want to have normal walls over here, as well as normal walls on the top 2 layers. And then here in the middle, we want to have another one of these circles with the quarter walls, just like that. And then a normal full wall right there in the middle. Then we want to place 2 walls here on the front, just like this. And then create this shape here on the sides. And then you can probably already guess what that is going to be. We can have some slope walls going into the building just like this. There we go. And of course, we can have some beams going across the bottom of these sections just like that there as well. And then make sure to add some pillars going to below here on the corners. And then of course, here on the front, we want to have our roofs just like that, and just like this on that side. All right, here on the inside, from this big large barn door, we want to go over here. So behind this first gap, we want to start adding in a staircase right over here. It's going to go until it's 3 high, so that should line up with this section. Then we can continue these ceilings. We can bring them actually into the side over here, and we can bring them all the way across to the other side. And then everything behind this, we can start filling in with ceilings, so we can easily walk around. And then around the staircase, we actually want to continue. We can go in by this, so there's a gap of 2 ceilings, and then we can bring this one all the way across to the front. We can also fill in to the side over here, and then we can go across until the end of the barn door over here, so should line up over there. And then of course we can have some railings along the edge of this. So for now we'll just continue along just like that, adding in this railing along the edge. There we go. And of course we want to have the railing for the entrance of the staircase here, as well as along the stair itself. And then of course we want to add some thin pillars over here, over there, and if you want to, you can have one over there as well. So over here on this side, we want to continue this wall by just 2, and then we can have a nice pillar going up. We want to have a gap of 3 wide, and then we can have another pillar. We can have a wall of 2, and then we can have another pillar right there. We can also fill in these walls. We're going to turn those into windows with the skins so that we can see through them, but we want to at least have these. And again, if you want to have any vines anywhere, you can of course add in some extra beams along the edges just to get that overgrown feel back if you're using the bunker structures cosmetics. Then here across from the staircase going up, we want to make sure that we add in the door right there, and then the rest of this wall we can just completely fill in all the way across, which should line up with the pillar over there. We can then actually also make sure that we add a pillar next to the entrance, as well as a beam going across the bottom of that section. Then we can of course fill in the rest of the roof over here. We can fill in 2 more layers alongside this, and we can have 1 layer right next to that. And this 1 layer we can at least here along the edges expand like so, and give a 3x3 gap right there in the middle. We can then take out our large cellar door, and we can add that right over there. So this is going to provide you access into the base if you want to drop things off, fly in and out, you know, just some easy access into your bunker facility. And we want to make sure that we have some beams going across the outside of where we have the cellar door, just like that. And then also make sure that we have the beams going across the edge over here. Here on the inside, we want to make sure that we have pillars going up along the entrance over there, as well as on this corner. And on this corner, we can make sure that it goes up 5 high in total. Then we can have a gap of 1, and then have another pillar that goes up by 5 in total. We can have a little doorway right there. and then just fill in the rest of that wall just like this. Then over here on this side, we want to leave a gap of 2, then bring up a pillar right over there. Here on the front, we want to expand the ceilings by a layer of 2 because we're going to create a nice little balcony out here. And we're going to have pillars on the corner just like this. And after 2, we're going to have some more pillars. Then we can, of course, take out the ceilings here on top of the roof as well. Fill in these sections until we meet up with that layers of pillars that we've just put in place. Go around that corner over here and fill in the last remaining ceilings. We can then take out our beams, go along the edge of what we've just created over here. So this goes in by a little bit and then just go across the side over here as well. Here on the side, we actually want to fill in these walls on the side of the balcony. Same thing over there. We can then have some railings along the front. And again, if you want to add vines, you can add some extra beams across here so that you could turn them into vines with the skins. Over here, we want to make sure that we have a double door to enter our lovely balcony. And then the rest of the wall, we can just completely fill in. We will have some windows, but once again, we'll see that when we start skinning the base. But there we go. We have a nice and very big, roomy balcony out front of this side. And of course, over here, we also want to make sure to add in the door. Then this entire wall up to the next pillar, we can just fill in with normal walls all the way through. So it's just going to be a nice big wall along this side. And along this side, we want to make sure once again that we encircle this whole thing with quarter walls. So we'll just go along the edge like this and fill in the quarter walls. And then the middle section can be normal full walls. And we should have a beam on the bottom at the top, as well as pillars going down along the side. And that is how you build this bunker base. But of course, it looks a little bit rough around the edges still now, because without proper skins, it is a little bit of a stone box for sure, especially since all the windows are still missing. So I think the easiest way for me to do this is to show you exactly what I've done for each of these sides, but to save a little bit of time, instead of going to do it hand by hand, I'm going to show you by using the example that I've already built. I will explain to you how to get to these variants if you're using the Bunker Structure Custom Cosmetics. And as you can see, for some of these parts, we have the overgrown variations. They're available for these roofs, which are really, really cool. You can turn certain beams into different types of vines. You might want to flip them around sometimes to get the best effects. You actually have the pillars as well that can be turned into an overgrown variant, which is really cool. We have, of course, also the different pillars, the construction pillars that you can turn into them. You have some of the railings that can be overgrown. So you can really play around with it and add the overgrown things to wherever you want. Those things I would definitely just do based on feeling. So there's not really any structure to it. You just want to kind of play around and make it more or less overgrown depending on what your own preferences are. But yeah, it's definitely a cool addition to a structure skin. So besides the overgrown skin, there's two different skins in the Bunker Structure Cosmetics. You've got the bunker skin, which is all the concrete looking things, and you've got the construction skin, I think it's called, which are these steel beams, as well as of these ceilings and railings. So a combination of those is what I've utilized. So if we take a look at this section of the building, so this is the entrance that we started with, you basically want to change almost everything to the bunker skin, except for the beams and pillars along the bottom of these sections. That's what I use the construction skins for, as you can see, to get those metal beams, as well as the gate itself. The gateway is still concrete, but this gate is the nice skin as well. And of course, these little balconies, you want to make sure that those are the construction skins, as well as this little lip that we build. Now, in the bunker cosmetic, there is a lot of options. The walls, you can actually skin to a lot of different options. You will see there is so many different ones of them. Some of them are these windows, and then if you flip one of them around, you can make them meet up in the middle to get a window like this. This window is also just a normal wall. Just go through the variations. Like if you interact with them, you will see a lot of the variations to get to there. If you're not unofficial, you can actually use something called the variant cycle gun to go through them a little bit quicker than by hand. So that is basically what you do over here. That is how you get these two windows next to the balcony. That's how you get this little window and this window as well. So this is all normal walls with the bunker cosmetic, just to turn them into window. Same for this section. This is just normal walls until you get the right variation. And then this is also a wall variation to get this little effect. So that is how you can add a lot of detail to those walls that we've just built without needing too much effort. So once again, I'll take a good look over here so you can pause it and easily copy what I've done on this section of the build. Then we'll move around the corner. So once again, we have this window going up. We then have the circular window, which is also just a normal wall cosmetic that you change until you get this variant. This one is actually called the round window. Just keep cycling until you see that. And then right on top of here, this is a normal ceiling until you get this variant, which is also, you know, just called glass. And it looks quite nice. So that's how you get that little corner done. Then you can see a little bit more of the construction cosmetics here, as well as on these sloped walls, and of course on the gate there as well. And we have a little bit more of the overgrown things along the side of the balcony. Once again, I'll take a quick look at this so you can easily try to match those skins. Then for this section, most of this is just the normal bunker cosmetic, except for the beams alongside this special feature. But these walls are still just the normal bunker cosmetics until you meet this shutter vertical variation, which looks quite cool and really brings in a different color to your walls. And then we have a little bit of the overgrown stuff there on the top of the stairwell. We then have this section with the nice big windows, as I showcased before. And then we have the balcony as well with another one of those windows. So once again, I'll just take a quick look at this wall so you can pause it and try to match it to the best of your own abilities by going through all of the variations. There is a lot of them, so it takes a little bit of getting used to, but yeah, that makes for a lot of options in your builds, which is quite cool. Then the back of the building is a little bit more easy. You can mostly just get away with using the normal bunker skins, and then you will see some of the windows. Again, that's just the normal bunker skin on the wall, and you go through them until you get the right variation. The only little bit of difference is, of course, we have a little bit of the construction skins right along this edge. And then, of course, you can add in vines by having some beams along the edge of it. But yeah, that is basically how you do this entire section. Again, I'll just look at it for a little bit so you can try to match this side as well. And then over here we have a little corner, of course, which isn't too difficult to get. Just the window, cycle through until you get the right variation. We have some of the construction walls on the side of the balcony there. And then if we look at this side, again, it's also pretty straightforward. We have the entrance quite easily. We have a lot of the beams turned into vines along the front, of course, to get all these vines hanging down. And then here we have a bunch of different windows along the balcony wall here as well, using the different variations. We also have some of the tables and chairs and benches cosmetics used here. This is just a deco box, by the way, the barbecue. And then we get to this corner also quite easily. You can see the entire landing pad is using the construction cosmetic, and then the wall behind it is just bunker skins with one of those vertical sliders again to get a little bit of variation. And I've actually added in an additional staircase. So I've added an extra pillar in case you want to do that as well. And then you could have an additional ladder. You don't really need it, of course. We already have the stairwell. But just as a little bit of detailing, I figured I might as well go ahead and add that too. Then there's a few other skins that I've utilized. You can just use the storage boxes with the skins as well. You get these really cool boxes as decorations around. This is on a deco box, getting the big water tank, and this is a generator skin that is part of the mod as well, which is really cool. Then this, of course, is just a nice billboard, really cool skin with the overgrown look. Then on top of here, this is the large deco box. This is a deco box as well for the satellite details here as well. So all these little details are just deco boxes placed around to just add a little bit more life to it. Then over here, I've actually added a thin pillar and some of these antennas around just as extra decorations. I've also turned some of these ceilings, I'll go up a little bit, turned some of those ceilings into those glass ceilings just to let in some more light into the inside of the build. Definitely a nice way to do that. But for the rest, yeah, the roof is pretty straightforward, as you can see. But it does make for a very nice base. I mean, if we take a quick look on the outside, I do really like the look of this base, and the bunker cosmetics are pretty cool to utilize. So yeah, I can definitely recommend them if you like this kind of aesthetic, a little bit of the overgrown bunker vibe. It does remind me a lot of Jurassic Park and Jurassic World as well, so definitely has a nice vibe to it. So really cool. And then this is more deco boxes out front, by the way. If we go to the inside of the base, we can of course check out what I did there with the skins. So for the bottom layer, the foundations, I've just made sure everything looks like the concrete or the bunker skins. Very nice. I've added some decoration around as well. Of course, this is mostly dedicated to dinos, breeding, hatching, and storing all of them. As I said, this wall underneath the walkway, I've turned into a nice glass wall all the way along, and then we have more of a dino pen going on. You can see you have quite a bit of space here for a bunch of tames as well as your different structures. But yeah, cosmetic wise, it's pretty straightforward on this layer. There's nothing too special. Most of this is of course related to the outside. Then the next layer, these walkways here, I've used the construction skin on, so we get this really cool metal look for all of this, all the way through to the balcony. So this is all construction skins. Then we have this wall, which has a bunch of windows as well, so you can see through to the next room, just like that, to, you know, add a little bit of light coming through, or just being able to visually see the other rooms over there, which I think is a nice touch. We have the entrance to the workshop here. You can see from here on out, I've changed the inside skins to this really nice wood texture, which looks like wood from the top, but not from the bottom, which I think is really cool. So if we go over here, you will still see the bunker look, which I really like. I really like the fact that they've done different looks for the top and bottom, which is a really convenient. So yeah, we have a really nice wooden floor in here for the entirety of the crafting room. And then of course we have some of these ceilings, as you can see, bringing in a lot of light into the base, and it just allows you to see a little bit more clearly. Then we have the kitchen area over here with nice decorations as well, and again a few of these skylights to let in some extra light into the build. The entire stairwell of course is using the construction skins on the stairs and the ceilings, so that you have that typical look. And yeah, the rest is, I think, pretty straightforward skin wise. But yeah, these windows are so lovely to get in a bunch of light. And then we have the bedroom, of course, where we have these windows, and of course the little dome on the top of this section, which really makes for some really cool features all the way around. But yeah, that is the entire way to skin the base, and that's also how I decorated the base. If you want to see the tour in more detail, I made a full tour video as well, if you want to take a look at it a little bit more, you know, on a different pace. But this should hopefully help you to skin it into the bunker that I have built right here. And yeah, I think it's a really cool look. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and of course feel free to leave suggestions for future builds down in the comments below. For now, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.